Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Indonesia Pavilion. I know you really enjoy your time a lot. I am so overwhelmed with the number of people who line up just to get into the pavilion. And I'm so grateful because it means that you all care about the environment, especially in managing waste. So let me put it this way. Indonesia is a growing nation with a rapid economic trends and increasing consumption, yet limited waste infrastructure. Consequently, the country faces mounting plastic pollution due to inadequate treatment and collection that threatens humans' health, climate stability, and the ecology. To frame the context, I would like to invite our keynote speaker. She's the Executive Secretary to the Ministry of Environment. She's also the former Deputy to Minister for Waste, managing waste and hazardous waste. So she has a lot of knowledge and experience to share with you about this whole waste management and the treatment. Allow me to kindly invite Ibu Rosa Vivin Ratnawati.
Thank you, Desmona. Good afternoon, everybody, my friend, my colleague, ladies and gentlemen. Today we will discuss about circular economy. So as we know, Indonesia acknowledges the growing global attention on plastic pollution and recognizes its important role in addressing this shared challenge. National data from the Solid Waste Management Information System indicates that Indonesia generates approximately 56.6 million tons of solid waste annually, with plastic comprising around 10 million tons. So the majority of leakage originates from land-based activities with a smaller portion from sea-based sources. These figures, you can see, underscores the scale and urgency of the issue, not only for Indonesia, but for the broader region. Plastic pollution represents a complex environmental governance challenge for all countries. In Indonesia case, rapid economic development, shifting consumption patterns, and infrastructural constraints add layers of difficulty. Limited waste collection and treatment capacity contributes to plastic leakage into terrestrial and marine ecosystem, as well as uncontrolled disposal. Indonesia share this challenge with many developing nations and view it as an opportunity for strengthened international cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, these practices have implications that extend beyond national boundaries, including contribution to greenhouse gas emission, such as methane and black carbon, and the release of hazardous pollutants. Addressing this impact aligns with global climate mitigation effort and support the integrated agenda of climate action, biodiversity protection, and public health improvement under the UNFCCC CBD, and other multilateral frameworks. Studies conducted by NPAT Indonesia, the World Bank, and LIPI between 2018 and 2020 estimate that 490,000 to 860,000 tons of plastic waste may reach the ocean each year. This up-to-date insight reinforces the importance of evidence-based policy making and the value of international scientific collaboration. So to overcome this issue, Indonesia believes that the transition from the traditional linear economic model to circular economy must be a shared global priority. Optimizing material flows, improving resource efficiency, expanding recycling and reuse system, encouraging eco-design, and strengthening extended producer responsibility, or we call it EPR. EPR are essential steps that require coordinated effort across not only government, but we need industries, we need partners for this. A circular approach to plastic offers significant co-benefits. Beyond reducing environmental harm and emission, it promotes inclusive green growth, stimulate job creators also, mobilize sustainable finance, strengthening resilience in waste and resources of management. Key elements for achieving both national and global climate and development goals. I have to fight with the rain. Indonesia, through the National Policy and Strategy for Solid Waste Management, or we call it JAXTRANAS, 2017 to 2025. So under presidential regulation, Indonesia has laid out a clear roadmap grounded in waste reduction at source and the waste to resource principle, with national targets of 30% waste reduction and 70% waste should be proper handling by 2025. Now, Indonesia also strengthening waste reduction in producers. So under one of the Minister of Environment and Forestry, the Minister of Environment and Forestry Regulation. So we have roadmap. We ask the producers to handle the waste, especially the plastic waste, and then they have make two kind of activities. One is they have to take back the plastic or the packaging that they use for their products. And then the second, they have to redesign the packaging. So the packaging not using single plastic. So it can be recycled again. Ladies and gentlemen, and to enhance community engagement and strengthen grassroots circularity system. So Indonesia has one system. This is very interesting. We call it waste bank. So like the bank, collect the bank usually collect the money. So this is the bank collect the waste, and then the waste will be buy in this waste bank. But of course, the waste that collect in the waste bank is the waste that can be recycled. Ladies and gentlemen, and now complementing national policies, Indonesia has 100 local government regulation restriction single-use plastic, reflecting strong subnational leadership and societal support for the circular transition. Indonesia also established the Regional Capacity Center for Clean Seas in Bali, which serve as regional platform for knowledge exchange, training, and dissemination of best practices. It reflects Indonesia's commitment to supporting other countries in the region and advancing collective action. In recent development, we are in the process to strengthen the policy and regulation on producer responsibility that are focused on three main aspects, including legal and law enforcement, governance, and market-driven instrument. So we will make waste management, as we call it, like industrialization for waste management. We have also now in the process of the draft of the policy, national policy and strategy under the presidential degree. Ladies and gentlemen, in the context circular economy in solid waste management, we are designing and strengthening the implementation of the following. The first, design for environment, encouraging packaging industry to switch to products that are designed to be environmentally friendly, as I mentioned before. Strengthening producer responsibility policies. So with me now, we will have a speaker also that they talk, Prof. Emenda from academy, and then a Faris from the person that the company is collect the plastic and then make the plastic to be reused again, recycle again, so we can hear from them. So we strengthening now producer responsibility policies, implementation post-consumption product, mandatory registration, optimization of collection, and return of waste. So ladies and gentlemen, my brother, my sister, if we talk about waste, we cannot use the old term, collect, and then transport, and then dump. We cannot use that principle like that anymore. We have to think that the waste that we produce should be, the first is we reduce it. But if we cannot reduce, so we have to segregation, and then to manage how the waste can be used again, can be recycled again. So it will not be dumped to the environment. Ladies and gentlemen, if we talk about waste management, so we talk not only us as the person, that produce the waste, but we talk the producer as well. So we need producer responsibility organization, establish an operation of PRO that will be mandated. Now the Ministry of Environment now on the process to make the regulation on this. And finally, I urge and invite all stakeholders to accelerate the transition. So government, we from the Ministry of Environment cannot work by ourselves. So we have accelerate the transition towards circular economy in solid waste management through strengthening producer responsibility regulation. And then the second, we strengthen collaboration networks between government, packaging industry, producers, community, and this is very interesting, informal sector. Because in Indonesia we have informal sector. And waste collector, recycling industry, university like Prof. Amanda, and research institution, as well as association. Develop innovation and technology for sustainable packaging material and design. And then share knowledge from global EPR system to enhance producer responsibility, policy, regulation, and practices in Indonesia. And we are very happy to learn from other countries how to manage the waste management and then make the economy circular become more implementable in Indonesia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ibu Vivien, thank you. Please have a seat. Could you all feel how passionate she is when she talks about waste? Regardless, it's raining cats and dogs, the noise coming from next door, the back door, everywhere else, but she still managed to convey the message very, very clear and very, very well. Thank you, Ibu Vivien. Okay, so we will touch base on the policy recommendation and investment opportunities in advancing the circular economy and plastic circularity, and we will identify strategies in preventing, this is also quite important, I think, illegal waste burning that exacerbates the carbon emission. And the last part that Ibu Vivien mentioned is the industry commitment in reducing the plastic footprint by enforcing the extended producer responsibility. Okay, we'll talk all about that. And to lead the session, allow me to welcome the Senior Advisor to the Minister of the Environment, Bapak Suryo Adi Wibowo, as the moderator. And the speaker, she is the professor and researcher from Institute Technology of Bandung, ITB, Ibu Amanda Sembiring. Would you please all come to the stage? And one more is Mas Hadian Faris Azhar, General Executive, Indonesian Plastic Recycling Association. And we still have one more. She's joining online. She's unable to attend in person. Ibu Lucia Karina, Director of Public Affairs and Communication Sustainability from Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners Indonesia. Ibu Karina, am I coming through okay? If you could hear me well,
Okay,
can you
thank
put
you
a
so
thumb
much.
up? Okay, great. Over to you,
Yes,
Bapak.
I'm okay. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I think it is better stay here. Just a few minutes ago, you all of you has new knowledge how Indonesia perceive the combating the plastic problem regarding with the climate mitigation through advancing circular economy. So, it is better to stay here until finish in the next 1 hour, and after that you can have coffee and you have coffee and souvenir. Yeah? Okay? So, we have two speaker directly in front of you, Professor Emenda Sembiring from Bandung Institute of Technology, and Hadian Faris Azhar, the General Executive Indonesian Plastic Recycling Association, and the rest, Ms. Lucia Karina, the Director of Public Affairs, Communication and Sustainability of Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners in Indonesia, will be addressed her concern through online. So may I give opportunity each of you, including Ms. Lucia Karina, about 10 minutes, each of you, and then we can have what you call it, ample time for discussion. Professor, please.
Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished delegates, Bu Vivin, thank you for inviting me for this event. Pak Bowo dan Mas Farid dan Bu Karina which online. Allow me to read to make it concise and 10 minutes because I'm a lecturer. Usually I speak more than 10 minutes. Okay, so distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address you today as a critical theme of transition from a linear to circular economy and the vital role of sustainable plastic waste management in achieving our collective climate objective. Allow me to begin with example encapsulated the direction in which we must move. Have you drink the Mamba water? Water in the can. Its initiative known as the Mamba water, it demonstrates how circular design principle can be integrated not only to reduce plastic dependency, but also advance social equity by replacing a single-use plastic packaging with fully recyclable aluminum can, and by committing 1 liter of safe drinking water for every can sold. This initiative illustrates the kind of innovations, inclusivity, and purpose-driven design that circular economy demands. As we prepare for the COP30 in Belém, where this initiative will be showcased to the global community because everyone drink the Mamba water, right? The water in the can. It is over a timely reminder that circularity is not theoretical. It is actionable. It is scalable and socially transformative. Ladies and gentlemen, the global challenges, the global challenges posed by the plastic waste has reached a level that demands immediate and coordinated action. Like Bu Vivin said, plastic pollution is not only an environmental hazard, it is a fundamentally climate challenges. The production of virgin plastic remain highly energy intensive and dependent on fossil feedstock. Meanwhile, Bu Pipi already explained the context of Indonesia. Inadequate waste management practices, particularly open burning, uncontrolled dumping, and leakage into the waterway, substantially increasing greenhouse gas emission, chemical substance emissions, and black carbon with severe implications of human health and climate stability. In Indonesia, the challenges are compounded by rapid economic growth and rising consumptions. National data indicate that more than 10 million tons of plastic waste are generated annually, while a significant fraction, approximately 61%, remain unmanaged. The unmanaged portion is the principal driver of emissions and environmental leakage. Next. Next, please. The national emission, Indonesia's 2019 greenhouse gas inventory, which serves as our pre-pandemic baseline, recorded approximately 1.145 million gigagram CO2 equivalent emissions. The waste sector, of course, it contributes meaningfully to this total, reinforcing the necessity of target mitigation within this domain. To our updated and enhanced national determined contributions, Indonesia has strengthened its ambition to 31.89% unconditionally and 43.2% conditionally emission reduction. Within this commitment, the waste sector benefit from enhanced policy framework, including solid waste management, greenhouse gas reduction strategy, circular economy pathway, and waste to energy initiative. Then, why plastic matter for climate mitigations? Plastic waste play a critical role in emission dynamic across the entire value chains. Why? Because the upstream production of virgin plastic is carbon intensive. Open burning release hazardous pollutant and significant greenhouse gases. Long-term degradation of plastic contribute to microplastic and chemical substance emissions. Inefficient collection system heighten the risk of environmental leakage. Therefore, improving plastic waste management is not merely a waste sector. It's not only merely a waste sector intervention, it is a cross-sectoral climate mitigation strategy. Next. Now I will, as a university student, we like the data, right? So bear with Bu Amanda that I will explain how we make a scenario based on the plastic waste generation in Indonesia. Next. And then the composition of plastic waste and how we highlight the important to reduce the illegal open burning and etc. Next. So we decide to see if we, for example, practice open burning without and allow the illegal open burning and increase the recycling, what will it be for the greenhouse gas emission? So our scenario models, next please. Next. Next. Okay. So our scenario model of emission potential under different production and recycling assumption provide a clear direction. Without open burning, annual emission from plastic waste range between 18,000 and 20,000 gigagrams CO2 equivalent. However, with open burning, it includes, from these figures, it increased by an additional 4,000 to 5,000 gigagrams CO2 equivalent in every scenario. This finding is unequivocal. Open burning is among the largest contribution to waste sector emissions. Eliminating these practices must therefore be a central pillar of any effective mitigation strategy. Moreover, scenario aligned with national medium national development term to 20% recycling and long-term national development plan for 35 recycling target and reduce upstream production, show pronounced emissions reductions as showing in the diagram. The result highlighted the climate benefit of pairing recycling scale up with production reduction through upstream intervention and eco-design will have a climate benefit. The transition from the linear to take, make, dispose model to a circular system deliver multiple climate benefit. One, avoid emission from reduced virgin production based on our scenario previously, lower energy consumption in recycling process, reduce landfill dependency, minimize environmental leakage and long-term microplastic emissions, and strengthen regional recycling market and reduce transportation emissions. So it means circularity therefore represents a holistic climate solution, one that addresses environmental, economic, social dimension, and environment simultaneously. Indonesia has advanced key regulatory instruments that support this transition, including the regulation number 110/2025, which established carbon economic value instrument and national greenhouse gas control mechanisms. It strengthened extended producer responsibility framework, ensuring that producers share responsibility for post-consumer packaging waste. Indonesia also has a policy regarding enhanced measurement, reporting, and verification system and national registry, including the integration of methane emission from landfill into national transparency framework. This mechanism from the institutional architecture required to drive accountability, investment, and measurable progress. An EPR system, it's almost finished, almost there. When fully implemented, offers a significant opportunity for emission reduction through establishment of national producer responsibility organization, supporting pool financing and standardized implementations. It's also, next please. It also integration of informal sector worker, enhancing collection efficiency while improving livelihood. Mandatory eco-design standard to reduce upstream emission. Now, last but not least, the pilot scheme in municipality demonstrating data readiness and infrastructure capability. However, these challenges persist, including data gaps, limited measurement, reporting, and verification capacity, economic barrier to recycling, and the risk of non-compliance in the absence of robust enforcement. So addressing these challenges is essential to fully realizing EPR climate mitigation potential. Okay, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, the transition to a circular economy is not simply an environmental aspiration. It is an essential climate mitigation pathway and an enabler of resilience, inclusive development. The evidence is unequivocal. Reducing upstream plastic production, increasing recycling rate, and eliminating open burning can significantly reduce national emission while generating economic opportunity and improving public health. As the world gathers here in Belém for COP30, Indonesia stands ready to contribute to a global shift towards circularity, one that is grounded in data, supported by policy, by Indonesia government, and oriented toward implementations. Let us move forward together with determination, collaboration, and shared responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Lucia Karina, are you standby for or ready for the second speaker? Yes, please. 10 minutes.
Morning, Pak Surya.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah. We hear very clear. Please moving
Okay.
forward.
Thank you, Pak Surya. Good afternoon, distinguished representative from Indonesia Ministry Government, Mbak Amanda, and also Mas Faris, and all international partners gathered here today. My name is Karina, and I'm the Vice President for Public Affairs, Communication, and Sustainability at the Coca-Cola Europe Pacific Partners for Indonesia. Thank you again to the Ministry of Environment for hosting the Indonesian Pavilion and for giving CCEP Indonesia the opportunity to share our work at COP30. Today, please allow me to speak about how CCEP Indonesia is driving plastic circularity for climate action and how this effort contribute directly to Indonesia's second NDC. As we know that Indonesia has one of the world's most complex waste ecosystem, but also one of the world's greatest opportunities to demonstrate that circularity and can deliver both emission reduction and also inclusive growth. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, around the world, countries are making substantial investment to meet their climate commitments, while also ensuring that economic transition remains socially just and economically viable, as mentioned by Ibu Vivin in her opening speech. The challenges is not only to reduce emissions, but to do so in a way that sustain growth, protect jobs, and also strengthen resilience. Plastic circularity, of course, sits exactly at that intersection: climate, economy, and also the people. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia is no different. Indonesia is pursuing climate action while balancing economic growth and poverty reduction. We have clear target: net zero by 2060, economic growth of 8% by 2029, and also reducing poverty to 4.5 to 5% by 2029. And at the same time, climate actually losses from extreme events already threaten Indonesia GDP and welfare across key sectors. We know that we have been impacted by floods, droughts, and also coastal, and that's already threatening productivity and social welfare in Indonesia. This also make it very essential for Indonesia to strengthen resilience through a low carbon and circular approach. Next, please. So, Indonesian second NDC recognized the solid waste sector as a significant contributor to our climate goals. This is particularly important because methane emission from unmanaged waste are many times more potent than carbon dioxide. The government has outlined a very clear emission pathway for the waste, such as to have zero open burning and no new landfill by 2030, towards reaching zero emission for the waste sector by 2050 and full net zero across all sectors by 2060. And it's very clear how the government actually address this matter. And clearly stated by the Minister of Environment and also BVP recently that every single parties have to take the action. So we know that waste is a particularly strategic sector because it emits methane, which is many times more potent than carbon dioxide. But importantly, the waste sector is also one where proven solution already exists and where the circular economy can unlock economic value up to 9.3 billion US dollar in annual economic value through resources recovery and new value chains. In addition to that, also another important element is that Indonesia's second NDC emphasized that climate action must safeguard the livelihood of millions working in the existing waste economy. Why? Next, please. So this is the why the human dimension is so important to significantly advance circular economy whilst abating emission in Indonesia. You can see his spotlight. He represents the foundation of Indonesia's circular economy. Waste picker, or we call Punaryoda Indonesia, are the backbone of the waste system. Around 3.7 million Indonesians earn their living by collecting and sorting the waste. They supply 85% of the plastic that enters the country's recycling industry. Yet only 11% of them have access to social protection. So we must recognize that any circular economy solution and any climate solution must start from the people who already make the system function today. Next, please. In this slide, actually, it's clear in 2024, Indonesia generated about 34 million tons of waste across 311 cities and regencies, where around 60% ends up unmanaged. This reinforces the scale of the challenge and the need for the coordinated action. Next, please. So, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesian solid waste sector faces structural gaps that create barriers to circularity. Formal collection services cover less than 40% of area. About 60% of plastic waste remains uncollected. The informal sector does most of the work, but without support, especially noting the reality on the ground, where multiple middlemen reduce their earnings and they lack of health protection and safety nets. Such challenges create degradation of the material quality through the chain so that the material that can still be valuable like plastic become harder to be managed and thus worthless. Next, please. So to build a circular economy in Indonesia, we must address these systemic challenges together within the coordination. Next, please. At the Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners, our sustainability approach sits at the heart of our long-term business strategy and sets out the action we are taking on the key social and environmental topics that are priorities for our stakeholders and where we know we can make a significant difference. This approach, known as Disease Forward, covers six key areas, and we aim to decarbonize our business to reach net zero emission by 2040. And a central part of the making beverage packaging part of the circular economy by removing unnecessary packaging and also increasing our recycled content. Next, please. Since 2019, Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific Partners Indonesia have reduced 35% of emission from making and distributing beverages into the country. More than 80% of our emission come from indirect sources, Scope 3. So supplier engagement and packaging transformation are most critical. Next, please. Next, please. The packaging itself contributes about 19% of CCEP Indonesia total emission. The plastic PET itself represents almost 60% of our packaging emission. This is why plastic circularity is central to CCEP Indonesia decarbonization strategy. Next, please. We adopt circular economy principle through three pillars: design, collect, and recycle, which is in alignment with the waste management strategy for circularity of the government of Indonesia. On design, actually, we reduce unnecessary plastic through lightweighting, deploying the affordable single-serve packaging format, and also using clear bottle. On collection, actually, we ensure responsible collection aligned with ethical practices and dignified livelihood, which I will elaborate further after this. And then on the recycling, we incorporate recycled PET back into bottles. So this is about close to the loop, bottle to bottle. In other words, we actually really implement the grave-to-grave, cradle-to-cradle, bottle-to-bottle recycling at our CCEP Indonesia production. All of this effort enable us to achieve quite remarkable result. By 2024, we achieved 100% 148% of collection of our primary packaging compared to 2019. About 20% recycled PET content in our PET packaging, and this leads to around 42% reduction in packaging emission compared to 2019. Next, please. So you may ask, how can CCEP Indonesia deliver such strong plastic circularity amidst the ongoing challenges in the waste management in Indonesia? Honestly, it's not easy, but we're really working hard on achieving our goal. So we developed a circularity strategy that aims to address the systemic challenges of waste management and circularity in Indonesia by leveraging the uniqueness and important roles that each stakeholders hold in the wider scheme of circularity. One of the major strategic moves that CCEP Indonesia have made in circularity is by making a major investment by investing around 556 billion rupiah to build the Amandina Bumi Nusantara, our recycled PET plant, and Mahija Parahita Nusantara, a social foundation as an integrated closed-loop ecosystem. This ecosystem manages responsible collection through Mahija Foundation and process PET bottle into food-grade rPET resin at Amandina plant. In the typical waste chain, plastic passes through multiple junk shops and often become mixed or contaminated, leading to low-value recycling or landfill. Multiple layers of supply chain also means there is lower margin that the wider informal sector players receive in exchange of collecting PET bottles. So through the Mahija Amandina integrated system, quality is maintained from the collection point onward, leveraging collection and segregation from sources, while Mahija works directly with the waste picker, collection partner, and collection center, significantly cutting down the PET supply chain, hence increasing the margin received by each players within the chain. The collected PET bottles then being processed by Amandina plant using international standards including ISO and FDI approvals. This integrated system of Mahija and Amandina ensure both environmental and social value are created. Next, please. So, so ladies and gentlemen, before responding to the question of enhancing and scaling up of APR mechanism in Indonesia, I would like to take us back again to the various structural gaps of waste management in Indonesia and show how such challenges can be addressed whilst creating environmental, social, and economic impacts. So, despite the ongoing challenges of the infrastructure gap, minimum support to the informal waste worker, as well as material degradation, the integrated system of Amandina Mahija has demonstrated that these challenges can be responded systematically. With 35 collection centers and over 2,400 collection partners across Indonesia, Mahija provide nationwide coverage to reach areas where formal collection doesn't operate. They support informal collectors with better income, working conditions, and opportunities. Until mid-2025, Mahija has reached more than 60,000 waste pickers through these empowerment programs. They apply quality control from the collection point onward and they return material back into food-grade rPET bottles, closing the loop. Next, please. Ladies and gentlemen, based on our voluntary initiative, we see 4 key lessons from Indonesia evolving EPR framework. The first lesson is that Indonesia context require adaptation, not replication. This comes from seeing how geography, informal dependence, and material flows differ significantly from other markets. Copying models from elsewhere simply won't work. So we have to follow our local context. The second lesson, ensuring a just transition is essential because millions rely on waste collection for their livelihood. Any APR system that excludes them will not only be inequitable but will also fail operationally. The third lesson is that success only happens when government, producer, recycle, and the informal sector work together. No single actor can solve the system gaps alone. And the fourth lesson is that large-scale investment only comes when enabling conditions are clear, predictable regulation, and transparent structure give businesses confidence to commit for the investment. This lesson directly shaped the optimal EPR design principle uh, at CCEP Indonesia advocate for. So next, please.
Would you
Based on our
allow you, Ibu?
yeah,
We,
yeah, Pak.
please, 1 minute after we have
Okay,
limited
yeah,
time.
Pak. Okay. So based on our experience and understanding of this context, we advocate for EPR framework design with principles such as extended stakeholder responsibility, while every or multiple stakeholder have roles to play. Flexible compliance pathway that recognize both individual producer compliance and compliance through PROs for holistic collection. Recycle content target that stimulate domestic recycling market development by requiring minimum recycled content in the packaging. And of course, not for profit PRO structure with ring fence fees to drive infrastructure development. So, and all the elements. So this element create a system where all stakeholders have a clear roles and where circularity can scale responsibility. Next, please. So this showing that three areas: design, standardization, enabling regulation, and strengthening the informal sector form the backbone for Indonesia and how Indonesia can scale the circular economy nationally and it ultimately replicate successful model like Mahija and Amandina across the province. Next, please. So advancing Indonesia NDC through a circular economy that leaves no one behind requires all hands on deck. The current approach where infrastructure development falls on individual actors and stakeholders works separately cannot deliver the scale required. We need a collaboration, as mentioned by Bu Vivin and also by Mbak Menda. Our commitment is to turn responsibility into real action where collaboration among business, government, and communities are critical. And that inclusion and innovation should be centerpiece of the circularity to empower the informal sector and the wider society. So in my closing remarks, actually, I would just want to say that I would emphasize that the circular economy is not simply, next please, about managing waste. It's about redesigning the system so they protect the climate, they support the livelihood, and enable a fairer and more sustainable future. With ambitious national target enabling policy framework and real investment like Amandina and Mahija, Indonesia, I believe, has the potential to become a global example of how circularity delivers both climate and also the social benefit and of course the economic. So CCEP Indonesia stands ready to continue working with the government, industry, civil society, the academics, and the communities to make this vision of a reality. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Ibu.
Pak Surya.
And the last but not the least,
Yeah.
Mr. Hadia Faris Azhar, would you please
Okay.
10 minutes, yeah?
Thank you so much, Pak Bo. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegations and distinguished speaker, Bu Prof. Amanda. So, I'm from Indonesian Recycling Associations. In these sessions, maybe we're gonna talk a lot of data. So, I'm an industry person, but I have close teachers, Prof. Amanda, so I love data also, Prof. So yeah, how EPR mobilize investment for waste infrastructures and low carbon growth. So because we are in COP, we talk a lot about carbon and everything, so I'll talk about what the relationship between recycling with the carbon low growth. Next, please. So yeah, brief introductions. We are associations, one of the largest plastic recycling ecosystem in region Southeast Asia. We have 500 industry members in our umbrella. From the petrochemical, so even our name is recycling associations. We have a member from petrochemical, from the bottle maker, from the recycling industry itself, and the brand owners. Any parties that have interest and have activities in recycling, we are welcome you. Next. So this is global circular rate. As you can see, our circular rate by year, it's going down. It's decline. The input circulars from 2018, it's only 7.2%, but sadly in 2021 it's declined to 8.9%. This is from the input side. So input side, what is input side? It's basically the second materials, second feedstock, and so on. And we also have from the carbon neutral biomass. Luckily, we stay in the same rate, 21.6% in 2018, and 2021 the same rate. And the output side, the waste destined for recycling, as you can see in the second table here, the waste destined for recycling, it's increased. This is really good sign here for us. From 2018, it's 11.1%, and from 2021, it's 11.2%. And as you can see in this pie chart in the right, as you can see, the raw material and the secondary material, it's still far, yeah. The comparison, the secondary material is only almost 7%, and the raw material is 90%. Next. So this is a global circular rate, as you can see from the input and the output, because Pak Bowo have a strict limitations time for me, 10 minutes. So just skip, this is complex things that takes a lot of times. Next. So what we consume as globally, the point is here, it's we consume more materials every year. But in the right side, you can see how we dispose. It's not really good figure, yeah. Most of the how we dispose our things is unspecified landfill, uncontrolled disposal. It's almost half of it. So if we increase our consumptions, all these materials will end up to the unspecified landfill or uncollected, almost 20%. So it's not really good sign for our earth. Next. So this is the Indonesian figures. As you know, we consume around 8.5 million tons a year. But this is a quite interesting figures. But if you can see, there is a huge portions from the recycled materials. So almost quarter of our plastic consumptions in Indonesia, it's come from the plastic recycling. Either is the local recycling and also the import recycling. The local recycling is around 18%, and import recycle is around 700%. In total, it's around 26%. And this is our plastic waste management. As you can see, we generate around 7.2 million tons a year waste, and only around 10% that we recycle. So it's really low figure, yeah. Next. So why plastic recycling? It's important for the circularity and low carbon growth. Because first, this is the transitional entry point for plastic circular economy. Second, it's a low carbon system, and the last, ready to go infrastructures. Next. So why plastic recycling? Why it's low carbon? This is based on the USLCI database by National Association for PET. As you can see, the PET recycling compared to the virgins, you can see the second table. This is more easy for us to understand. So the total energy used by the recycling plastic, especially the PET, it's only 21%. So it's really low compared to the virgin material. Prof. Emenda, that's what we talk, yeah. Why I count it also from the extractions. Because if we compare, it's really low. It's only 1% energy that we need to recycle plastic compared to virgin plastic that we extract from our natural resource, yeah. It's also same for the water consumption. It's a unique figure because it's consume more water when we recycle. The problem is not the recycling process. The problem is because when we dispose our waste, when we not segregate our waste, when we not clean our waste, and the process on the recycling process, it will take a lot of water. So we can lower these figures, the 104%, by doing the segregation from the source and having a better waste sorting systems. And also the any other figures showing the same numbers, that recycling plastic have a lower resource demand compared to the virgins. Next. So it's a low carbon system, yeah. And this is what I mentioned before. From the linear economy to the circular economy on the plastic, because I'm the plastic recycling industry persons, I'm talking about the plastic circular economy. So the entry point to having a circular plastic, it's having a design for circularity and collection and sorting system. But these two things, it have a major investment. That's why a lot of company unwilling to go to redesign their packaging because they have to install a new plant for their bottle. So it's major investment. It takes like 3 to 10 years. The operational funding gap is really huge. So in Indonesia case, I'm not sure about another country, but this is Indonesian case. We have already 3 million ton capacity, and we have already 1.5 million idle capacity. I think the figure quite same with another country. Yeah? So there is existing industry can deliver result today to bring this transitional. So we have time to spend for 3 to 10 years. Next. So this is the funding gaps. This is Bali case. Maybe if you speak about Indonesia, the most popular destination is Bali. So this is Bali. World Bank recommendation for solid waste management operational financing is around 800,000 to 1.2 million rupiah per ton. But average Indonesian budget is only 50,000 ton to 300,000 ton, which is the gap is really huge, not really comparable. It's really huge. Yeah. So in the Bali case, we have too much zero. Yeah. So the point is, it's huge. The gap is huge. Next. Nah, I'll talk about Indonesian recycling landscape. So we are everywhere in Indonesia. We have many facilities in Sumatra Island, in Java Island, in Kalimantan, in Sulawesi, in every major, and we contribute around 0.1% of GDP, around 21 trillions. The tax also we contribute a lot. The deficits, foreign exchange, skilled and unskilled. And it's already mentioned by Bu Karina, the informal, we have around 1 million informal workers there. And in waste, we reduce around 1.2 million waste. And the emissions, we reduce around 2.09 million ton equivalent carbon dioxide. Next. This is 1 decade. It's growing. The recycling industry in Indonesia growing, keep growing. Next. This is the momentum. So from the momentum to transformations, but there is a problem. Yeah. So this is really good number, but this is the problem. We face the low utilization and feedstock. Every people come to Indonesia. You have a lot of waste. So let's build a recycling factory. But when they have a recycling factory there, they don't get the feedstock. It's happened in many developing countries. It's happened in many underdeveloped countries because what? The waste not equal as a feedstock for recycling. The feedstock of recycling is the sorted waste, so it's not equal. As
Mr.
you can
Azhar,
see, yes.
Would you 1 minute
1
left?
minute. Okay, next. So this is how Indonesia waste management happens from the household to the landfill. As you can see, this is recycling. So many recycling get their feedstock. It's from the informal sectors. So the blue line is the formal waste management. The red line is the informal waste management. So everything will go to the informals. There is no connections directly between the formal waste management with the recycling industry. Next. Okay, so this is the problems. We have a feedstock uncertainty, limited solid waste management infrastructures, no enforcement of waste segregation. I think this same happened in developing country. Yeah? And packaging design oriented toward recyclability. In the process, we have the cost of productions of recycling plastic is more expensive than the virgins. It makes the recycling plastic not really competitive because the problem is from the supply itself. And then the demand, we don't have any demand. Especially in Indonesia, we're still exporting most of our recycling plastics to the Europe and North America. Next. So how really EPR can help fix this problem? So as you can see, by solving, EPR can solve the recycling challenge, and then we get more investment, and then we have a circular economy and low carbon growth. Next. So from the feedstock supply, how EPR really can solve the problem, it's through the eco-modulations, because it's financing and provide incentive to have a design for recycling, and also have a mandatory design for circularity under the EPR frameworks, and PRO funded improvement for the infrastructures. Next. This is the recycling process, how EPR really can fix it. The guarantee supply contracts through PRO, the EPR funded the infrastructure and so on. Next. This is the product demand, how EPR can fix through mandatory recycling contents. It creating the demand for the recycling content, and it give incentive for the producer to use the recycling content, and it's provide a market. Next. So yeah, this is our basic calculations. So basically, EPR can really fill in the gaps of the waste management in Indonesia. It's around 12 to 20%. So I think same could be happen in the other region, yeah, the other country with similar characteristic with Indonesia. So EPR can help around 12 to 20%. Next. So where to start if we speak about Indonesia? The most important area is collections and aggregation and sorting facility based on these calculations by Kibumi. And the region that need to be prioritizing is DKI Jakarta, the most populated city, and so on. I think that's from me. Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, we have limited time after the three speakers. So it is, in my opinion, one or two questions each for 3% or 2% with one question could also address to our speakers. Is there any participant that willing to raise questions? Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I am Andrea Santana from Ecuador. I would like to know, in the practice that you make here in Indonesia, you can explain me what type of plastic you consider is a circular product. What type of, for example, biogas, or I don't know what kind of plastic you consider. I want to make know the standards that ISO has for plastics. Maybe you can use also in the project that you have made. I don't know, I don't listen nothing about that. And also we have standards about circular economy. Maybe you can review. And really, I really appreciate this speak. It's really important for me, and congratulations for that.
Thank you. The question for both of the speakers, all three of the speakers, any kind. Yes, please. The second and the third, you lady.
Yes, thank you for the brilliant presentation. I want to understand the coordination mechanism you have, because I see most of the informal sectors also talking about NDCs. This is a challenge for us, so we want to learn how you coordinate as a government those informal sectors to contribute for NDCs. Thank you.
Third.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Pamela from African Union. I want to ask about the question regarding the policy on banning single use of plastic. So what do you think that policy, if implemented, you could support the circular economy as well and ending plastic use, because it's associated also with health disadvantages? Thank you.
Are you from country? What kind of country?
I'm from the African Union.
African Union, sorry.
Yeah.
I will invite from the government side to answer your question, but before that, you can answer both questions.
Okay, I'll answer the last questions first about how really the single plastic ban affect the circular economy, right? So basically, from the perspective of the recycling industry, we really support the phasing out or the banning of the single-use plastic. But we need a clear standard of which plastic that should be banning. In Indonesia case also, there is some a high recycling rate plastic that get banned, which is not really good for the circular economy. So that's why we really embrace to having the EPR, because under the EPR we have the eco modulations that provide a clear standard for which plastic that really recyclable, which plastic really have a high circularity, which plastic doesn't have it. So after we have a clear standard, we can put which one that we should eliminate it from the market. That we have a clear standard first. After that, we can process to banning some type of plastic. Without the clear standards, the government sides, without any strong basis, it will be really confused also for the governments to decide which plastic that we should ban, right? So that's from me. And also there is another questions from previous. I forgot, maybe Professor Menda, you want to?
I will address the question related how Indonesian government coordinate the informal sector. Currently, Indonesia government develop a draft for policy regarding solid waste management, including the EPR. In the draft, in the bill, we try to highlight it and recognize the contribution of informal sector. But we haven't formulated yet how the applicability of the informal sector as the overall system of EPR, especially Mas Faris already mentions, the importance of recycling is the feedstock, it should be segregated at the source of waste generations. We're thinking we already have a lot of study on the role of informal sector, and their contribution is significantly important in Indonesia. I think it also occurs in Africa, in other global south country. Let's see, someone said informalize the informal sector, maybe the solution. We are thinking about that one too, but let's see other things like corporate and other things that we can see. At the same time, we improve the collection and segregation and the waste, and also improve the livelihood of the informal sector.
I want to add some about the questions about banning the plastic. So I want to ask the audience, which one that we should ban from these two products? This one, the aluminum can, or this one, the paper one? Which one? Raise your hand if you agree to ban this one. Raise your hand. Okay, okay. Raise your hand if you agree more to. Okay. From the recycling perspective, we should ban this. I'll explain to you. Yeah, this is one type of greenwashing that no one knows. From what materials it's made? Paper. Please touch the inside. You will find something. It's plastic. So it's a paper laminated by a plastic. Who will recycle these things? No one. It will be degrade in the nature? No. So nothing can happen with this. That's another types why we should have the EPR. EPR give a clear variable which one that good, which one not. It's not really good for us. But this one is 100% recyclable. You can recycle it many times. Informal can get money from this. It's have a value. It's $1 per kilo. This zero, even minus, because it costs us to manage this waste. Okay?
Thank you. Ibu Karina, would you also address the questions?
Yeah, thank you, Pak Suryo. I just want to ask answer the question on the how does Indonesia coordinate the informal sector in the circular economy and also the standard. So, as you aware that Indonesia is one of the few countries that integrate informal waste worker directly into its national circular economy strategy. That's right, but the fact that until now there is no policies that protect them. However, as a private sector, we cannot wait the government really have the policy to protect the informal sector. What we can do actually working together with the local communities and also with the local government by saying that what we have done so far, we implement what we call the just transition circular economy in Indonesia, and we are the one that pioneering this initiative. So we uh, give them the training. We also give support to increase their livelihood by supporting their children. This is also is about try to increase their knowledge on the circular economy and also give more social inclusion for those waste speaker. And the other things also what we are working now to develop the waste banks that also can include the waste speakers to be part of the circularity. This is not easy, but since we have started back in 2018, it's really workable on this matter. In addition to that, also we create what we call the waste bank books, and we educate the waste speaker to proceed the all the waste material to be a economical scale material, and this is also help them to gain more economic values. Uh, this approach actually really protect livelihoods while also driving a higher collection, better recycling, and a more inclusive circular economy. So I'm really happy that now the government already start drafting a regulation or the policy that can protect the waste pickers. In the question of the standard, because I think one of the question is actually is about what the standard that we use to do the recycling. Yes, we have a lot of standard actually that been applied for our Amandina Bumi Nusantara, our recycling facility. We use the ISO for I forgot the ISO 14040 on the life cycle assessment. We also use the ISO 59004 on the circular economy framework and principles. We also use the ISO 59020 about measuring circularity, and also ISO 15270 on the plastic recycling guidelines, and ISO 18604 on the plastic on the packaging and material recycling. In addition to that, because we also doing supporting the European business, so we also apply for the EN 1343 on the packaging recyclable by material recycling. And we use also the Ellen MacArthur Foundation frameworks, particularly on the organizational circularity measurement tools and recycling design guidelines. So some of the international standard we use. Well, in Indonesia, we are also the one that really support on development of the SNI for plastic and recycling. Now we already have the SNI, Indonesian National Standard on the recyclability of PET only for the food and beverages packaging. So we are, if you are want to get more detail on this standard, please let us know and then I'll send to you. Thank you. Oh, one more, Pak Suryo. One more, Pak Suryo. We
Yes,
also
yes.
use the circular initiative harmonize, the circular initiative harmonized responsible sourcing standard, which is acknowledge the waste picker and informal sector within the supply chain of the collection and recycling of the plastic PET. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you, Ms. Karina. Regarding the question, what kind of role that taken by the government? Which government in Indonesia, according to the regulation, particularly the central government, their role is, according to the regulation, is making a national policy and making regulation that generic for each district throughout Indonesia. Because the waste management, particularly domestic waste, including plastic, it is the responsibility of the local government. Okay? So what kind of activity, what kind of policy, what kind of endorsement by the central government is particularly raise the awareness of the local government and making national policy for 25 years ahead. And this already done, and so the government monitor that kind of activity. But today we can hear also from Mr. Adi. He is from the central government, so we can hear what kind of the policy that already taking place, yeah? In the nationwide activities for taking the circular economy pathways.
Yes, thank you. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Andy. I'm the head of Planning and Financing Bureau. Actually, I'm not really the speaker for this event, since our keynote speakers already go back to her apartment. So as a part of the government, so I have to answer this question. Okay, but so first of all, we have the regulation, the law about the solid waste management. It's law number 18/2008. One of the issue that regulated by this law is about the EPR, extended producer responsibility. Basically, in the law says that every manufacturer, any kind of business and something like that, that produce product or packaging, the main point is that the product or packaging should be able to recycle or be composed by the in a natural way. This is the main point. But if you cannot the business, if they cannot produce product and or packaging that is be able to be recycled, then you have to responsible for the product or the packaging after they use. So that's the basic regulation from the law number 18/2008. And then we have the government regulation, and then also the Ministry of Environment and Forestry regulation number 75/2019, which is regulated more technically about this EPR. So previously we all regulate focusing on three source of the solid waste that should be able to be recycled and or should be able to be decomposed, something like one is the food and beverage industries. Second is the retailer activities, and then the third one is and the third one is the manufacturing industries. So again, basically from the regulation numbers, ministerial regulation number 75 2019, the producer have a obligation to provide the roadmap for implementing the EPR regulation until 2030. So start from 2020 until 2030, they have to implement and they have to develop the roadmap, then implement their roadmap until 2003. So basically, the government try to impose these regulations to we have at least three focus activities, as I mentioned: the food and beverage industries, retailer activities, and also the manufacturing industries. So basically, if they produce any products and or packaging, and then they have to start to think how to recollect, even either by, for example, like they provide the drop box, something like that, or they take away the food, the products, and also the packaging, and then they have to recycle again by the industry. So actually, there are several industries or activities that already implement this. Like for example, the industry for mineral water, and also the activities from from personal industry business from personal care. So they already implement these activities. But again, in the implementation, we are still have challenges, especially on how we control and monitor the implementation of the each activities or business roadmap. Then I think that's our challenge now. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Randi. And then I think time is already finished, and perhaps you want to make some closing statement, and including Ibu Karina.
Thank you, Pak Bowo. From our academic work and field research, there are several very practical lessons stand out when we talk about reducing greenhouse gas emission from the plastic waste management. First, of course, eliminating open burning is absolutely essential. Across all scenarios, we model open burning at an extra 4,000 to 5,000 gigagram of CO2 equivalent each year. So if there is one intervention that gives the fastest and largest emission reduction, it is stopping the open burning.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, Miss Karina, closing statement. If there any closing statement from you?
Yeah, thank you, Pak. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia still has a long journey ahead including when we are talking about the waste speakers, how we are going to increase their social beneficiary and etc. But the momentum is finally moving from policy, as Bu Vivin and also Ibu Amanda mentioned about having the draft of presidential regulation and also the minister regulation from communities and from industry. So I believe now a circular economy in Indonesia is not just about plastic, but it's about people. Waste picker are at the heart of Indonesia recycling ecosystem, and they
Thank you.
deserve dignity, protection, and real opportunity. So let's work together, collaborate together, where no one is left behind and no material is left unmanaged. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you so much. Give applause to all of the speakers. From this session, I can conclude that the most important actor with regard to this kind of issue, circular economic is a pathway. I think the government, the legacy of government is on how they can make a regulation that can be obeyed throughout Indonesia, but the action is not on the government. The action we show from the speakers, it is on the people. Thank you so much.
If I may add my 2 cents, I think shifting the paradigm of reuse and recycle to ensure the resource efficient and socio-economic co-benefits is achieved. And then the responsible collection program by CCEP needs to be replicated, multiplied, and amplified to upscale the positive outcome of circular economy. Thank you very much, Pak Bowo, all speakers, including Ibu Karina. I don't know how you manage, how you handle to giving out statements to address all questions at 3 a.m. your time. Thank you very much. We value your contribution, Ibu Karina. And everybody please rise. We're going to have a photo op together.